This is EWS Weekly News.
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's special edition of the EWS Weekly News. Today we are following H.R. 3684, also known as the Infrastructure Bill. If passed, this bill would spend $256 million to increase funding for roads, bridges, money for transit and rail, electric vehicles, upgrading airports, ports, waterways, improving power and water systems, and much, much more. However, for the past few months, that's been a big if. President Biden has worked to create an image where he is one with the middle class, and part of that is significantly strengthening our country's infrastructure. You might be wondering, why haven't I seen any crazy new construction? No Biden allies rejoicing and let's go Brandon kind of folks upset because his bill became law? Well, a bill becoming law is a complicated process. Let's walk through it together. First, a bill is written. The writer of the bill can be a legislator, an interest group, or even a concerned citizen. However, the sponsor of the bill must be a congressperson. From there, it's sponsored in either the Senate or the House. Once sponsored, the Speaker of the House refers the bill to a standing committee chair. The current Speaker is Nancy Pelosi, a Democratic representative from California. Don't get too excited. There are already so many potential roadblocks at this stage. For one, the bill can be pigeonholed, meaning that the chair does not schedule a vote for debate and the bill therefore dies because it's never considered. If the bill does get referred to a subcommittee or it stays in the standing committee, committee members will dive deep into the bill. They'll conduct studies, hold hearings to gather a variety of expert testimonies, and mark up the bill. Marking up the bill means debating, amending, and rewriting a proposed bill. Once the committee agrees, they'll take a vote. If it fails, womp womp. But if it passes, the bill moves to the House Rules Committee. The bill will then be debated on the House floor according to the rules set by said committee. Once the debate is over, the representatives take a vote. Meanwhile, in the Senate, they go through a somewhat similar process. The Senate is much less structured, which is what allows, for example, the filibuster. A filibuster is when a senator halts action by essentially hogging the Senate floor until other senators give up. First, the Senate leadership will schedule a vote for the bill. It goes to the Senate floor for debate, where, like I said, it could be filibustered. From there, a conference committee is formed, including members from both chambers of Congress, to smoothen out the differences between the House and Senate versions of the bill. Then, the House and Senate each vote on the same final version of the bill. If it fails in either, it fails. But if it passes in both, it's on to the president. Now, the president has some options. He can sign it and it becomes law. Yay! Or not yay, depending on what the law is. He could also refuse to sign it. That's called a veto. But it gets more complicated than that. If the bill sits on the president's desk, a few things can happen. If the president vetoes a bill, something called a congressional override can occur. If 2/3 of Congress votes in favor of overriding the president's veto, the bill becomes law, despite the lack of presidential support. So basically, this is what the process looks like. Now that we know all about the legislative process, we can examine why H.R. 3684 faced some serious issues. The infrastructure bill passed in the House on July 1st, 2021, and passed in the Senate on August 10th. For weeks, the bill was stuck in conference committee, which for a while wasn't looking so great for its passing. This bill is tied very heavily both in the media and among Congresspeople to Biden's Build Back Better Act, or H.R. 5376, if you would like to look it up. Biden has a significant portion of his presidential agenda encompassed in this bill so as to take advantage of Democratic majorities in the House and Senate before the midterm elections of next year could potentially change that. However, Build Back Better has a ginormous price tag of $1.75 trillion. For some, Democratic Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, the price is just too high. Many critics of Manchin are furious because he has a personal financial stake in coal. He founded a coal brokerage company before he became a senator, and once he entered office, he handed it over to his son while still remaining a stockholder. Last year, he made over $500,000 in dividends. So, if this bill passes and the industry disappears, Manchin loses some money. Fact. As for Sinema, she not only opposed the bill's massive expense, but supports cuts to several of the bill's proposed policies. This includes opposition to many key Democratic goals, such as reducing prescription drug prices, increasing the corporate tax rate, and elimination of the Clean Energy Performance Program, which is a popular measure aiming to move to 100% clean energy by 2035. Neither of the two senators have publicly endorsed the bill, although Manchin has been far more communicative with the press than Sinema. Because of these two, Biden's ambitious Build Back Better Act is effectively halted. It's very unlikely to pass because Manchin and Sinema are both Democrats, and Biden needs all 50 Democratic senators in order to make this bill become law, as it is extremely unlikely he'll be able to get any Republicans to cross the aisle. Until this past Friday, it was looking like the Biden administration would either be forced to make an additional significant cut on costs or propose another bill entirely, though that seemed unlikely. In fact, it felt like the infrastructure bill would just remain in committee, resolving differences indefinitely. But Friday night, congressional game of chicken came to a close. House lawmakers overcame Democratic Party infighting to hand Biden a major bipartisan win. The final vote was 228 to 206 as one of the first of two major pieces in the president's colossal economic agenda heads to the White House. The bill will affect all 50 states and help Biden deliver on a campaign promise of dramatically improving American infrastructure. Members were seen celebrating after Speaker Pelosi banged the gavel. As this bill finally heads to the White House, Democrats rejoice knowing they still have some sway. After two unexpected struggles this past week, including Republican Glenn Youngkin's gubernatorial win in Virginia and Democrat Phil Murphy's narrow win in New Jersey, Democrats realized they need all the wins they could get. The bill was a bargaining chip between progressive and moderate Democrats, saying much about the future of Biden's ability to spend with this current Congress and how the future of the diverging Democratic Party will interact with each other. The way in which Speaker Pelosi brought on this bill was certainly politically contentious. The Washington Post reports, moderate Democrats earlier in the day privately told Pelosi they would not provide their must-have votes to advance the latter tax and spending measure until they could assess its fiscal impact. Pelosi then tried to resolve the matter by changing course, putting up the infrastructure measure first with a plan to hold off on considering the other half of Biden's agenda for later. But that infuriated liberals, who threatened by the afternoon to withdraw their support in response. As the House was paralyzed for 12 hours, Pelosi took the floor and gathered as much support that she could among Democrats. Because there wasn't a resolution, the Speaker would have been forced to cancel planned votes on the bill for the third time in the past 2 months. Biden even personally called into the Progressive Caucus meeting asking for their support. He also made similar private calls to moderates to ensure his plan would succeed. In short, Pelosi moved forward without knowing for certain if she had enough votes. This upset some Democrats, because if she ended up without the adequate amount of support, it could have been catastrophic for the bill, for Biden, and for the agenda of the Democratic Party. President Biden said of the bill's passing, "We have to move now. I'm convinced that if we act now, in 50 years people will look back and say, this was the moment America won the future." That's all for this week's special edition. I'm Sophie Kalman, and we'll see you right back here next week on the EWS Weekly News. Thanks, everyone!